Hello, everyone. Pat Down at MMA back with another DWCS contract ranking. I told you guys I'm going to be bringing you rankings for every contract winner from every weight class. So I'm going to be bringing that. Today, we're going to be getting into the light heavyweight division. In that division, there were five winners that received contracts. So we are going to be getting into those five fighters and ranking them. First, we are going to be getting into Brazil's Kevin Christian. So Kevin Christian beat Francesco Mazzio via round two submission on week 7. He has a 9-2 record with 8 finishes and 5 wins coming by submission. And Christian just overall has very good submissions and cardio. He has crazy length, but really just doesn't know how to use it. And we did see that a bit in this fight. He was being dominated with the wrestling by a pretty average grappler before finding the submission win. And I really just didn't overall agree with the signing. He is just 29 years old and has a ridiculous build, so I can see why they went ahead and did it. But I just don't think he has the skill to hang in the UFC as it stands right now. He may find a couple wins, but I really just don't see any long-term success for Christian in the UFC unless he's able to develop his striking and really be able to utilize his ridiculous reach and height. I personally think he should fight Nikolai Negumereanu in his debut. Nikolai Negumereanu is coming off a 2-year layoff plus even, and he is a very tough vet. So I think that a tough vet coming off a very long layoff would be good for a guy like Christian to kind of just get his feet wet in the UFC. Moving on to number 4 on my list, we do have Brazil's Bruno Lopes. Lopes beat Mikael Saziniani via round 2 knockout on week 1 of Dana White Contender Series. He has a 13-1 record with 11 wins by finish. He is a former LFA heavyweight champion, and he does have a 1-1 record on DWCS. He was knocked out in the first round by Brenson Ribeiro last year. So Lopez does have some decent grappling, but did show in this fight his striking, which is what ultimately got him the win. He did show some of the same flaws that got him knocked out last year. So that really wasn't good to me. I really was turned off by seeing some of those same issues on the feet that I saw last year. He did show that his chin can eat some of the shots, but he underwhelmed me a bit before getting that finish. There just wasn't like too much to be impressed about. He is 31 years old, so I do want to give him a little bit of time, but I don't think he really should be rushed or babied. He's a former LFA champion. He's been on the Contender Series twice now. I think he has a decent floor, but not the highest ceiling. I think he might be able to push the rankings at some point, but I don't know if he'll really ever be a ranked fighter for a consistent amount of time. I personally think he should fight another guy just starting out on his UFC journey in Magomed Gajiazulov. Gajiazulov is a tough fight, but I think it's someone that Lopez really needs to prove he can beat before he can really start getting some tougher tests in the UFC, which I feel shouldn't be far away if he can put together a couple wins. So moving on to number 3 on my list, we have Kazakhstan's Diyar Nurgozhay. So Nurgozhay beat Bartok Shevchuk via round 2 knockout on week 8. He has a 10-0 record with 8 finished wins, and 6 of those wins coming by knockout. Nurgozhay is a wrestler, but he just uses striking basically exclusively in his last 2 fights. He is very well rounded, but I feel like he should mix it up more. His fight was very low volume and very close before he kind of just landed a big head kick knockout out of nowhere to win the fight. He did show that he could strike for long periods of time in that fight against a striker, which was very promising, but I don't think he really necessarily impressed too much before the finish. There really wasn't much that happened in the fight, honestly, before the finish. At just 27 years old, though, Nurgozhay does have time to grow a bit more. I personally think he does have top 10 upside if he can put everything together, and I think he has a really high floor just because of how well-rounded and how smart he is in the cage. I personally think he should fight a guy like Rodolfo Bellato in his debut. I think it would force Diyar into a chaotic fight, which is something he really isn't used to. And I think it would really test his limits, but I think it's a very winnable fight for him. And I think it would be a really fun fight where Diyar could really show us how good he is as a prospect. Moving on to number 2 on my list, we have the infamous Artem Vakhitov. So Vakhitov beat Islam Mesraf via round 1 knockout on week 9 of the Contender Series. He has a 3-1 record with 3 round 1 knockouts. His only loss was due to injury. He is the former Glory Kickboxing light heavyweight champion. He is a 1-1 against Alex Pereira. Pereira was actually there to watch his fight and apparently convinced Dana White to make the final move and sign him. He is an incredible counter striker. He dealt with the grappling really well against Bazraf as well and showed his takedown defense is decent. And he did answer a lot of those questions about whether he could defend the takedown against a big guy, which Mazraf was fighting at heavyweight before this. So he definitely answered that. But he is still a bit raw overall. You kind of saw it in the fight. He just is not fully developed into MMA yet. At 33 years old, he really doesn't have much time. He does have potential, but I just don't think his style will end up translating as well. I do think he should hit the top 10, 15 just based on his striking prowess, but I don't know if he'll get much higher than that. He definitely might if he gets a couple good matchups, but I don't see a championship in the future of Vakhitov. I personally think he should fight a guy like Marcin Prachnio in his debut, get him more experience against a striker that isn't too likely to knock him out, but against the guy that he really has a chance to put on a very dominant performance against. So moving on to the last and number one fighter on my list, we have New Zealand's Navajo Stirling. Stirling beat Philip Latu via round two knockout on week 5 of Dana White's Contender Series, and he has a 5-0 record with 4 wins by KO. Stirling is a former kickboxer that trains at City Kickboxing, and at just 26 years old with a ridiculous 83-inch reach, he has some amazing technique, great speed, and just really nice power and fight IQ in general. He answered a lot of questions about his chin in this fight, and he ended up breaking down Philip Latu and landing that kill shot on what I consider to be a very solid fighter. I personally think he has very high potential. We could be looking at a future light heavyweight champion if he is developed properly. I think personally, at the very minimum, though, we will see Navajo Stirling ranked for a significant amount of time. And Stirling is already booked for his UFC debut against Tuco Tacos at UFC Tampa on December 14th. It's a very good test for him wrestling-wise, and it will show us how well he can defend takedowns that are coming at him consistently and break down a guy who's wrestling and going to try to be getting him to the floor the entire fight. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 2 of my DWCS rankings. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed, and please make sure to tune in for the middleweight rankings, which will be out shortly. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you in the next one.